You don't have to look much farther than any 2D platformer to realize that oftentimes it's art that draws somebody to a game, not the gameplay so much. So while level design and mechanics are a factor in 2D platformers, generally it's just mix and match of the same exact things. You know, triggers and small puzzles and sometimes gravity-based challenges, dodging bullets or enemies, firing against enemies, trying to get treasure and that kind of thing. That stuff's pretty much all the same in 2D platformers, but the art can be drastically different. So we can look at games like Ori or Limbo or Hollow Knight. They're all very different art styles, but very similar gameplay. And what's interesting for me, anyways, it's actually fun to play any of those based on the mood that I'm in. So I don't just say I want to play a 2D platformer. I say I feel like playing Limbo today, or Inside, which is made by the same company. And these games are immersive because of their really unique and interesting art styles. And when I first saw Limbo, it was obvious that this was something very different from an art perspective. So this week, what we're actually going to do is build assets for our games. And so just kind of quickly define assets. I'll go over this again a little bit in the next section in the other videos. But an asset is any prop or player or enemy or anything that you interact with and or see in the game that isn't the level itself. So you wouldn't say a level is an asset. You would say that the treasures or the power-ups or the enemies are assets. Level design is its own thing, and we could spend a whole 5 weeks just talking about philosophies and approaches to that. But for the sake of this class, we're going to be mostly working in the asset department. Backgrounds also count, and any kind of environmental stuff. Lighting is not necessarily an asset, but it does have an impact in the look, which games like Limbo and Inside have obviously used to great effect. So let's talk about our discussion this week. What are some of your favorite art styles in games? And you can go broadly, like style like 8-bit or painted or CG, and talk about that kind of style, or you can use specific examples of games where you really like the art. I recommend kind of doing both because, for me, I have a very diverse taste, but it is nice to identify specific games where the art was actually the primary factor for me playing it. The other thing, though, we want to include in this discussion is what is the danger from a development standpoint of really concentrating on art up front. Obviously, you're going to use art when you're building a concept document that you'll pitch to somebody, whether an investor or another developer or something like that. But it's really important to not get too bogged down in building all your assets before you've actually built the mechanics of the game up. Because art is sort of infinitely subjective, you can tweak it forever and never arrive at a functional game. So it's really important to actually get some mechanics built out, even if everything's temp. In fact, I've seen some pretty elaborate games that are paper prototyped with pennies and other kind of markers or existing units physically, even if they're going to be a video game, just to kind of get the mechanics down. And then once they're programmed into the system, into the engine, they use readily found, freely available art in order to get the game working first. Because once again, you can spend forever on art, so you might as well get the game working and then start replacing the art later. Much like we're doing in this class, we're actually replacing the art on a working game, so we're not spending a ton of time trying to build up mechanics through coding and whatnot. But we will get the experience of having to deal with scale and rotation and other factors as we bring different pieces of art into existing material. So head over to the discussion board and answer the questions that we've posed here. That is, what are games where the art has really made an impact on you as a player? And then also, what are the dangers of spending too much time in art in development? Be sure to comment on each other's posts and also cite examples, and then cite sources of those examples if necessary. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next section.